It's a pleasant good afternoon here at Broadcasting House. Hello and welcome to News Hour live on TV with me, Frances Bernard. Coming up in this edition of the news, the Ministry of Health and Sanitation presents awards to hospitals and for excellent health media coverage to the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation (SLBC). National COVID-19 Emergency Response Center (NACOVAC) revises travel and mask guidelines to come into effect on Wednesday, 13th April 2022. And emotional reactions from the media circles continue to pour in following the death of Jonathan Lee, proprietor and managing editor of the Independent Observer. These stories plus more are lined up in this edition of the news, but first let's take our coronavirus preventive message.
You see where them people here wear them mask them fine? Well, now so you self wear your mask. Cover your nose and you mouth all time where you dey near other person.
It's News Hour live on TV. You stay with us for the next 1 hour if you can. The Ministry of Health and Sanitation has presented awards to hospitals for the Best District Health Management Team and Best Tertiary Hospital, and also awarded excellent health media coverage to the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation. The Minister of Health and Sanitation, Dr. Austin Demby, said the awards night was quite necessary as medical practitioners did not often get the recognition they deserve. Julian Kuruma has more.
The Ministry of Health and Sanitation's recognition night was graced by medical practitioners from various medical institutions in Sierra Leone. The acknowledgement night is the culmination of the launch of the Quality Essential Health and System Support Project and the Ministry's first Health Summit. As the Ministry of Health and Sanitation is set to boost healthcare delivery to all, recognition for past victories was due.
That if you step to the doors of any hospital and every healthcare center, you want to have the assurance that you're meeting health professionals that will do their best for you. By the time you go in there, you taste, they want you to leave smiling. Even if you lose the patient, you want the relatives to say they tried, they did their very best. So today is a moment of saying thank you. Thank you to all of you for what you do.
Bagging the award for Best Tertiary Hospital was the Olajurin Children's Hospital.
The winner in this category have demonstrated excellent service delivery skills in healthcare through their excellent performance in the implementation of SLBC measures and infrastructure, clinical services, especially specialized service care, good quality, skilled and professional staff. They are the first to be fully accredited for postgraduate training.
The awardee, Olajurin Children's Hospital.
Triumphant in their health delivery for the Best District Health Management Team was the Kailaun District. Many other medical institutions were appreciated for various healthcare delivery. The Health Ministry also awarded the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation for Best Health Media Coverage.
Thank
you very much. On behalf of management, the board, management and staff of SLBC, I want to thank the Ministry of Health and Sanitation for this wonderful award. We appreciate it and we're going to do more.
In the next 5 years, the Ministry of Health and Sanitation would be implementing structures that have previously been discussed during the Health Summit. It is hoped that the awards night would be the push medical practitioners need to take healthcare delivery to the next level in Sierra Leone. SLBC News, Julian Kuruma.
9-year-old Suri Conte, who contracted pathogens while fishing in his village at Putloko district, has been brought to Mariposa Hospital by Propel Sierra Leone for proper medication. The dire situation of the ailing boy has urged the organization to appeal for help from government and humanitarian organizations to save his life. Let's join Cecilia Sise for more on this.
The signs of poverty are glaring at Makin, the home of Suri Conte in Putloko district. 12 years old Suri, in his struggle to feed himself, fell twice while trying to catch a fish to survive the day. During that process, the young striker injured his two sides and failed to inform his relatives, thinking it was a minor injury. Not until a few days after, he started complaining pains from his two sides. Fortunately, Propel Sierra Leone, a non-governmental organization working on improving health and education, discovered about the situation of young Suri, and with the permission of his relatives, he was brought to Freetown. His situation got worse at Connaught Hospital as his entire body got swollen. He was finally brought to Mariposa Hospital at Juba Hill on the 28th March 2022. After running several tests on Suri, Dr. Francis Colon revealed that the boy must have contracted some waterborne germs or bacteria, which had gone into his body and has caused damages to his tissues. According to Dr. Colon, there was some amount of gas under his skin and his kidney has been affected. Currently, Suri is responding to treatment of aggressive antibiotics and surgical drain of pores.
Of course, gave us a red light that maybe we are in front of a flesh-eating bacteria that causes pus. And so when I examined, I noticed there were so many areas that were inflamed, despite the fact that they might have given him a lot of fluid from where he came from. But there were a lot of areas that were inflamed, that were warm, that were severely tender or painful on examination. So I decided, of course, let's start IV medication immediately, do some blood work because we needed to know the status of the patient, both biochemistry-wise.
However, to aid his sooner recovery, much finance and resources are needed as his present daily medication are expensive and hard to find. Therefore, Propel Sierra Leone, on behalf of Suri, is calling on government and other humanitarian organizations and individuals to assist with whatever little help to save the life of the young lad.
There's a lot of aftercare that he's going to need. Once he's out of this hospital, he needs to go back to the chieftain village. His nutrition needs to be much better than what it is currently. So any donations towards his medical, hospital bills, or anything will be greatly appreciated. Everything can go directly to Dr. Colon or to the NGO. Any help is appreciated at this stage.
Poverty as a killer disease in Sierra Leone can be healed if we lend a helping hand to each other in times of need. Suri Conte needs that hand now than ever. Lying very sick, Suri is determined to get well soon and continue his education, as he said in his local Thimini language to SLBC. Reporting for SLBC News are Cecilia Sise.
Holy Week is the most sacred week in the liturgical year in Christianity. It begins with Palm Sunday and concludes on Easter Sunday. Holy Week starts after 40 days of Lent and 2 transitional days, namely Saturday of Lazarus and Palm Sunday. To talk more on the Holy Week and its importance to Christianity, I have with me in the studio from Zion Circuit Methodist Church, Sierra Leone, Reverend Solomon Moses, Reverend Solomon Van Kane. Good afternoon, Reverend, and welcome to News Hour.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Now, Reverend, for those who does not know what Holy Week means, do you want to take us through the importance of this week?
Yeah, well, like the entire observance of Lent itself, is the remembrance of the life of Jesus, especially the final week of his life on earth. And so that was the commencement of Jesus' salvation for mankind. He could have aborted it by not going up the cross. But even his entry into Jerusalem was a bold step. That's why the Bible says he resolutely moved into Jerusalem. It was a decision he made. It was a determined step that he took to ensure that he goes to Jerusalem, he dies on the cross, and sets us free.
Okay.
It goes back to Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, where they fell, and the soul of man was like cancelled from being in union with God. And so what he came and did for us on Good Friday was to save us. And that's within this week. That's why this week is called the Holy Week.
Okay, so what is expected of Christians, especially those that are going through the fasting period, since this is the Lent period? What is expected of them during this period, this week?
Well, it is like the climax of the celebration or the commemoration of the life of Jesus. And so we expect that those who have been fasting will continue now to strengthen their relationship with Jesus, to focus more on his suffering this time around. It's like shifting now from us to him completely, looking at what he did and how he did it and why he did it, and to ensure that what he did does not go in vain.
So now you hear people say this is Good Friday, you just spoke about it.
Yeah.
So, and it's all within this week,
Yes.
This Holy Week. So let's talk about Good Friday in details. Because you hear people all over the place, they will talk about Good Friday, they will dress people and they refer to them as Judas and all this. Just go through this one for the good of the general public.
Well, Good Friday actually is like commemorating the suffering of Jesus. I mean, that's the specific day on which the actual betrayal took place and every of those things went on, which were, what brought him to the cross. It was a time of pain. It was a time where he was denied justice. It was a time when a criminal was chosen instead of him. The criminal was set free, and he who was innocent was crucified. There was a day on which that which he seemed to avert when he said, "Father, if it is your will, let this cup pass my head." He yielded to that thing because it was God's will for the cup to pass over him. Instead, he yielded to the death on the cross, and on that day it happened. He was flogged for us. I mean, if you remember, like in the Rebel War, fathers were brought down and told to lie down on the floor in front of their families. That was very humiliating, and that's what Jesus went through for us who were sinners. The punishment we were supposed to take, he took upon himself. He took the sins of the world upon himself, and that's the reason why on the cross he cried, "Father, Father, why hast thou forsaken me?" Because when he took the sins of the world upon him, his father could no longer commune with him. And then he felt that agony of being alone. So that's actually what Good Friday is. A day that is seemingly terrible, but a day that is like the best also.
Okay, so over the years we've seen people, as I just talked about Judas.
Yeah.
Is it right to do what people normally go about doing on Good Fridays? Is it right?
Well, this is not about right or wrong. This is just about remembering the events of that day and going through them. Judas sold his master, and therefore people think that we should repeat exactly what should have happened to him. He killed himself, and now people are saying if it was now that he did it, we would love to flog him. So the little boys tie a rope around some puppets and they carry it on the streets, flogging him as if to say, let's punish Judas. But you're no longer punishing Judas. He's dead and gone, actually.
Okay, so sometimes you see some Christians, they will say on Good Friday, I don't eat anything that has to do with blood or those funny stuff. Is that also correct?
Well, those are just wishes. It's like because he died on that day. But his death now has nothing to do with us eating meat or blood. It really doesn't count.
All right. All right, thank you very much. He is Reverend Solomon Van Kani, and he is from the Zion Circuit Methodist Church, Sierra Leone, and he has been telling us about the importance of Holy Week. You watching News Hour live on TV, and I am your host, Frances Bernard. We'll continue with more stories. In observance of the holy month of Ramadan by Muslims around the world, Center for Islam Public Enlightenment Dialogue, CPED, a Muslim organization headed by Ambassador Haja Alankol, has provided food and fabric items to Muslim women in Calabar town. As Aminata Fofana reports, the distribution done at the Masjid Nabawi Sharif Mosque in Calabar town was in line with one of the 5 pillars of Islam known as Zakat.
The holy month of Ramadan requires Muslims to observe 29 or 30 days fasting of the Islamic calendar. And during this exercise, it is expected that every Muslim adhere to guidelines consequent to the Quran. Founder of the Center for Islamic Public Enlightenment Dialogue, CPED, Ambassador Aja Alarikol, stated that though some Muslims were willing to observe the holy month, they lacked food support, and it was against this backdrop that they took up the venture at every Ramadan to support Muslims, especially women in different mosques across the country.
The hallmark of Ramadan is going without food and water for several hours. And for you who can afford it, you don't understand the pangs of hunger and thirst that poor people feel. And this is why Almighty Allah has said you have to feel it for you to be able to feel what they go through on a daily basis.
The women expressed appreciations to CPED for the support, stating that even though the items will not last until end of Ramadan, but their availability to them was timely.
I feel happy receiving this support. I pray that this kind of gesture will continue, not just for women in Calabar town, but also for those facing difficulties to feed themselves during this holy month.
I get rice, I get sugar, I get tomatoes.
I received rice, onions, Maggi, tomatoes, among others. I am really happy for this support.
Islamic scholars admonished all observing the Ramadan to abstain from haram activities that will tamper with the blessings of the exercise. SLBC News, Aminata Fofana.
Emotional reactions from the media circles continue to pour in following the death of Jonathan Lee, who was proprietor and managing editor of the Independent Observer, one of the biggest newspapers in Sierra Leone. Mr. Lee died on Saturday, 9th of April, at a Connaught Hospital after a short illness. His career in journalism spanned from decades before he took up a role as Sierra Leone's deputy ambassador to Germany under President Bio's administration. Well, in the studio with me is Princess Gibson. She is the public relations officer of the Sierra Leone Association of Journalists, LAD. Princess, good afternoon and welcome to the news.
Yes, Francis.
So how did SLAD receive the news of the demise of Jonathan Lee?
You see, Francis, as I sit here as a media fraternity, we are still devastated by the demise of Jonathan, because Jonathan was a brilliant journalist. He was considered as an encyclopedia of knowledge. Jonathan represented a generation of journalists with vast experience around media practice, around a lot of subjects, ranging from politics, sport. For SLAD, we regarded him as an institutional memory because Jonathan could take you through the workings of SLAD from the 70s to now with ease. Many times during our chats in our forum, we have asked Jonathan to write a memoir, a book that could catalog his experience around media practice, around media professional. Jonathan could also be remembered again as a shadow editor, as a shadow producer. Most times he would pick out mistakes, oversight of broadcast, and publication, and by that he builds upon our capacity. So his demise, Francis, I can tell you, has left large the media fraternity devastated as I speak.
So, as you normally do, are there plans to open a book of condolence in his memory?
Yes, we are definitely going to do that, to catalog his memories, to bring out his legacies that many young journalists could emulate. Jonathan could also be remembered as a victim of the criminal libel law that has been defunct. He fought for media freedom many times. He was arrested, detained, and incarcerated because he believed in media freedom. And if you see us celebrating a free media, free press, devoid of harassment, Jonathan is one of those journalists that fought for that. So therefore, he could be remembered for that. Jonathan was also one of the founding members of SWASAL, which you also represent now. They actually conceived, yes, the idea of the formation of SWASAL, and thereby groomed a lot of journalists today that have taken interest in sport reporting. Jonathan could also be remembered for, bond, friendship. You see him, you see Sori Fofana, you see Shegbawo. That is lacking in our era now. A lot of bickering, a lot of division. But Jonathan kept that bond, that friendship. He also had sense of humor. The last time he spoke to me was during our AGM, and she asked me, "How old is your daughter?" I told him, "Are you not going to give birth to another Colbian in our local park?" That is Jonathan. Very respectful. You could relate with him despite of his age or his experience in practice. He could relate with the younger generation freely.
All right, thank you very much, Princess. She is Princess Gibson, and she is the Public Relations Officer of the Sierra Leone Association of Journalists, and she was talking there about the life of a colleague journalist who passed away on Saturday, Jonathan Lee. Continue with News R. Carl Sierra Leone has expressed its appreciation and disappointment for some of the recommendations in the white paper. This statement was made during a press conference held to inform journalists on the statement they have made so far on the Sierra Leone white paper at the Civil Service Office, Tar Hill in Freetown. Let's join Fatima Kamara for more on that story.
Carl has again commended the government of Sierra Leone for releasing a white paper that was progressive in many respects, but however, according to them, they disagreed with the government on some of the recommendations it had accepted and rejected.
The government accepted 50 of the 134 recommendations and rejected 84 of them. And as I said moments ago, it decided 3 new recommendations for constitutional amendments. So be able to deal with bill, we deal with that. But we have said no. This is such an important matter that it deserves to be included in the Constitution. As I've said, if it is included in the Constitution and it is even made an entrenched provision in the Constitution, there is little chance that any administration will come and make a change easily without a referendum, which is why we find it disappointing.
One of the recommendations Carl appreciated the government for was the separation of the Office of the Attorney General and the Minister of Justice, and they hope that the separation will be done and that the 2 offices will have their roles, functions, and powers clearly be included in the Constitution.
So it's also talking about protecting women or making sure that women have a space in the workforce. It's now agreed to make special provisions for women with children. So if you have a child or children and you're working in government or even outside government, as long as you're working within the territory of Sierra Leone, there will be special provisions for you.
Also, according to them, the white paper was not comprehensive as it ought to have been, in that many issues critical to growing the democratic and governance standards were omitted. Among others, they were expecting the following issues would have been considered: CAL would have appreciated clear recommendations for strengthening judicial accountability and independence. They also argued that there was a need for a public defender's office to defend the constitutionally guaranteed right of citizens and the need to review the composition of the police council and the highest decision-making body of the Sierra Leone police. SLBC News are Fatima Kamara reporting.
Still investigation.
Last weekend, a Mushroom University, Dominion Christian University, did their congregation under some mango trees at Waterloo. According to education authorities, the college didn't have any accreditation and could not recognize any degree or doctorate given by that university. Since that scandal, other mushroom universities have come to light, and one such university is the African Graduate University, and the Tertiary Education Commission has issued a press release on 8. The Administrative Manager, Tertiary Education Commission, Joseph Sawyer, is here with me in the studio. Good afternoon, Mr. Sawyer, and welcome to News Hour.
Good afternoon.
Now, you issued a press release, and we saw the closure of Dominion University, Christian University. What's the latest?
Well, as you just mentioned, on Saturday, a team from the Tertiary Education Commission, together in collaboration with the Sierra Leone Police, went to the institution at Waterloo, and then, of course, the institution was closed down officially to the public, while its investigation is still going on with the proprietors of this institution. So at the moment, just as a follow-up of our press release, the public should not have any dealings with the institution, and the structure itself remain closed.
So now let's talk about people who have already gained employment using these degrees. What will happen to them?
From the previous press release that was issued, it was very clear on the part of the Tertiary Education Commission that the institution is not recognized, not accredited by the TEC, and as a result of that, all degrees from that particular, all awards from that particular institution is declared null and void.
Okay, let's talk about the African Graduate University, because it's now clear from you that the Dominion Christian University is not, people should not, that anybody, yes. Basically. So now let's talk about the African Graduate University. You also issued a press release, and this African Graduate University, they are also claiming to have got some green lights from you people.
No, I think the press release was very clear, right, that we received an application from them, right, and unlike Dominion, their institution was evaluated by the TEC.
Okay.
Our experts on institutional development and registration carried out an evaluation process to determine the institution's suitability for consideration as a university. We looked at their staff strength, their curriculum, the structure, and on the whole, the experts found the institution unsuitable to be accredited by the Tertiary Education Commission. And basically, that particular outcome of the evaluation was communicated to the promoters, and in fact, as part of our press release, went on to state that we communicated the outcome of our evaluation to them, that we found them unsuitable to be accredited as a tertiary education institution in Sierra Leone, and basically they should not even apply to the TEC for the next 2 years. So theirs is straightforward, and it's very clear because they went through the accreditation process with the TEC, for which they did not succeed.
Okay. Now, Mr. Sawyer, let's talk about things the TEC will do to prevent such universities from existing within our country, because from all indications, Sierra Leoneans have paid their monies to these people, not knowing that it was not genuine, and they have received their monies, and now they are going. Your press release clearly states that degrees from these universities are not accepted and are not recognized by the TEC. What will you do to prevent such institutions from operating?
Well, basically, it's just to encourage the general public before you go into any, before pursuing higher education institutions within Sierra Leone or maybe outside of Sierra Leone. It will be good to seek advice from the Tertiary Education Commission about the suitability and accreditation status of that service.
Sometimes it is difficult to access.
No, it's easy. It's very easy for us. Our website is there, www.tec.edu.sl, and then we'll be providing our list of accredited institutions to the respective media houses to be hearing them, of course. And then, as we said, we have our Facebook page, which will also publish a list of our accredited institutions. So it's very clear. And then the commission itself is located at number 8 June Street. So the general public is basically free to make inquiries. I must state, let me state that very clearly, that the commission is grappling with a legal institution. As I'm sitting here, we are just from another exercise. We've just unearthed another one that claims to be Quest University. So the proliferation of so many institutions around Sierra Leone are there, and we are also craving the indulgence of the general public to help us as well.
So what do you think is responsible for this?
Well, I mean, basically, the desperation of people. Some you'll find do not meet the full conditionalities to access regularized accredited institutions will always find a way around, right? To find institutions wherein they will go with entry requirements that are less than the stipulated requirements meant for universities in Sierra Leone. Others are out of mere ignorance, I must state. Others are basically victim of circumstance. So I must categorically make it clear to the general public to always contact the Tertiary Education Commission on the status of institutions before ever you enroll into these institutions.
So don't you think you should print out the names of these institutions that are accredited by the TEC? You take them to these various institutions where these institutions that are accredited by your commission, so that if, for example, if I go to Frabe College, I want to seek for admission into any course, I will see the list of accredited institutions. Don't you think that should be done? And you also need more media engagement to educate the public.
In fact, it makes it so easy for any Sierra Leonean that want to access higher education in Sierra Leone. If you want to go to any institution, if that institution is accredited by TEC, definitely there will be proof of evidence of a provisional registration. So any institution that cannot put on their notice board a provisional registration or a certificate of registration claiming they've been accredited by the TEC is a cause for alarm for any Sierra Leonean not to go to that institution but to cross-check with the TEC.
You said you are investigating the issue of Dominion University. So what's the status?
Well, basically the status as at now, the institution remains closed while the Criminal Investigations Department is probing further. So I cannot prejudice the course of the investigation.
All right, thank you very much. He is Administrative Manager, Tertiary Education Commission at the TEC, and he is Josephus Sawyer. We continue with News Hour. National COVID-19 Emergency Response Center, NACOVAC, has issued a press release on the revised travel and mask guidelines, which will come into effect on Wednesday, 13th April 2022. The center has been revising guidelines since the start of the COVID-19 risk commercial lead NACOVAC. Thomas spoke more on this to Esther Sako on the new guidelines.
Yes, because our interventions and regulations are actually informed by the data or the science. And then we put out a public notice on the 9th of April to become effective on Wednesday, the 13th of April. And this looks at revised guidelines for travel and also for the mask mandate. As from the 13th of April, you will not be required to do a pre-departure test before coming into Sierra Leone. But whilst in Sierra Leone, if you are fully vaccinated, then you will not be required to do the PCR test, which is the gold standard for COVID-19. Then you would go straight to where you are going. But if you are partially vaccinated or not vaccinated, then you would be required to do the PCR test before you go to your destination. And then before coming into Sierra Leone, whether vaccinated or not, you are required to go to the portal, that is www.travel.gov.sl to actually fill in your details. That's a requirement. And for outbound passenger, those that are going out of Sierra Leone, whether you are fully vaccinated or not, you should take a PCR test before you leave, and that will be done 48 hours before your departure. And you're also required to go to the portal www.travel.gov and then fill in your details.
And people don't care about the use of face masks anymore, because at first when the virus started in the country, people were using face masks, and there were strict rules and regulations and monitoring. So best are you going to monitor the use of face masks?
That too has been revised. If you are fully vaccinated, meaning you have taken your full dose of COVID vaccine, for instance, AstraZeneca 2 doses, Pfizer 2 doses, Sinopharm 2 doses, or Johnson & Johnson 1 dose, it means you are fully vaccinated. You will not be required to put on a mask. The use of masks for fully vaccinated persons in Sierra Leone is optional. However, it's optional. If you look at the risk and you feel that it's necessary or overly important for you to put on your mask, you can, but it's not a requirement for fully vaccinated people. But for unvaccinated people or partially vaccinated people, the mask mandate is still on for those categories. It's important for them to put on their mask, especially when they are in places where there are more than one persons.
He is Harold Thomas, ending that interview with Esther Saku, and he is the risk communication lead at NACOVAC. We continue with the news. The official voice of the people of Sierra Leone, the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation, SLBC, has received a windfall, this time in the area of building its human capacity. At the just concluded University of Sierra Leone congregation, at least 7 employees of the corporation were awarded degrees in different fields of study. As Victor Jones reports, this year's university congregation was crippled by the news about the sudden death of a 24-year-old candidate barely few hours to the ceremony.
Francis Habib Abu Munda, Imada Rogers.
Funeral silence held over the Ajay Crowther Amphitheatre Friday following reports of the passing of Imadu Rogers, a candidate for the convocation who passed away in a ghastly road accident hours to the ceremony. The ceremony was usually without fanfare and without the usual pomp and pageantry. The graduates were in a somber mood. But this year's ceremony again recorded great strides in human capital development, especially for the public broadcaster, the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation, SLBC. For the first time, the SLBC has produced at least 7 graduates at a single ceremony with mass communication, recording the highest, and for the first time in its entire history, spanning from the days of the then SLBS, the corporation has produced the first female law graduate. She is Zendral Blake, who already holds a master's degree in public administration. This latest feat is not only part of the corporation's strides to boost the capacity of its employees, It also accelerates the national call by President Bio to actualize the human capital development. It further positions the corporation for efficient and effective service delivery by trained and qualified professionals. With 4 women and 3 gentlemen, our new graduates present the significant place and opportunity provided for women at the SLBC to adequately compete and, in this case, leapfrog their male counterparts in the relevant divisions at the corporation. In the last 4 years, the SLBC has produced 23 graduates, including 5 postgraduates from the University of Sierra Leone, of which 15 are women. This year's pace was set by reporter Jonathan Turner, who graduated with a bachelor's degree in public sector management, Frances Barnard of our sports desk with a bachelor in mass communication with honors.
When I came to the SLBC, I came here with just a diploma from Milty Magai. And at SLBC, I was inspired by people to go to Frabe College. I went to Frabe College. I did diploma again in mass communications. After the diploma, I was a little bit tired or lazy to go further. But, you know, thanks to the current Director General of the SLBC, then he was not even the Director General. He actually said, Francis, you are going for it. And he pushed me forward. And then I went again for the degree. And today, I'm out with a honors degree in mass communication and broadcast to be specific. So the feeling is very, very, very much good.
Reporters Esther Mariama Sako, Kadiatu Kagbo, Muhammad Simbi Kuruma, and Sulaiman Baba Toure, all with bachelor's degrees in mass communication. While congratulating the new graduates, the Director General of the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation, Joseph Igbenda Kapua Esquire, assured all employees that the board and management remain committed to supporting staff to pursue higher education. He encouraged the staff to use the knowledge acquired for the development of the official voice of the people of Sierra Leone, the SLBC.
Story is now time for us to find out what's happening in other parts of Africa. For the latest in some parts of Africa, Gambian President's political party won a narrow victory in the legislative elections held on April 9. According to the country's Independent Electoral Commission, Adama Barrow's National People's Party, NPP, won 19 of the 53 parliamentary seats up for grab. This means, although the NPP has overturned the majority held by his main opponent, the United Democratic Party, they will have to seek for a coalition to govern the 58-seat chamber. The president will have to appoint 5 additional lawmakers from his own party in the next few days, including the Speaker of the House. The new parliament is due to be sworn in on April 14. A UN Security Council request for independent investigations into the alleged Mura massacre in Mali has been blocked by Russia. The request was contained in a statement drafted by France and submitted to the Security Council for approval. According to several diplomats, Russia, backed by China, opposed it. Moscow and Beijing did not see the need for this text, considered premature, while an investigation has been opened by the Malian authorities. The proposed statement to the Security Council underlined the deep concern of its members at the allegations of human rights violations and abuses in Mali, in particular those perpetrated against civilians in Mura in the Mopti region from 27 to 31st March 2022. And finally, in the African news, Jacob Zuma has continued his bid to remove the lead prosecutor from the highly anticipated corruption trial against the former South African president, that started today. Mr. Zuma faces multiple charges of fraud, racketeering, and money laundering relating to a $2 billion United States dollars arms deal with several European companies, and he is charged alongside French company. Both deny the charges, which Zuma claims are a witch hunt by political rivals. Last month, the Supreme Court of Appeal rejected Zuma's application to have prosecutor Billy Downer taken off the case. The Jacob Zuma Foundation said Zuma's legal team has been instructed to institute a private prosecution against Mr. Downer in the next few days. Well, that's all for some stories making the headlines in other parts of Africa. It's now time for us to get some entertainment stories.
Hello and welcome to the ENT News. My name is Jasmine Kilonakoli. In this edition of the ENT News, Builders Trust Incorporated to host Jazz Meets Comedy, and Knack song gets 40 million views. Builders Trust Incorporated, in collaboration with Cribs International, is organizing an event titled Jazz Meets Comedy. The event will feature one of Africa's best pianists, Wole Omi. The event is a mixture of jazz music and a comedy. Valindo Pasivalde is the Chief Executive Officer of Builders Trust Incorporated.
I tend to look at people who listen to or play jazz as a little bit too serious, nerdy, out of this world, or odd. But those of us who like the music know it is not that, but it's very good, like I said, inspiring and heartwarming music. And fusing that with comedy will cause somebody or force somebody, so to speak, to go and see how these two things come together. 17th April, Bintumani Conference Center, it goes for 300,000 per person. We also have tables for 8 for 5 million, and you have a drink and some food. You have tables for 8 for 10 million, and you have unlimited food and drinks.
They said this edition of the event will be a unique one, as it will factor popular comedians in the country. He appreciates the guest performer Wole Omi as a renowned musician and the only African Yamaya endorsed musician.
Hey, what's up, people? This is Ambassador Wole Oni, known as Wump. So I'm a multi-award-winning music producer extraordinaire, the first German artist in Africa, a UN International Youth Peace Ambassador, and many more. Come on, man, it's all about music. So see you on the 17th of April, 2022 in Freetown at Vitomani Conference Center. So I'll be there live to do some sweet music. Jazz all the way, guys. Come on, don't miss out. And big shout out to the organizers of this event.
And now, Sierra Leone song by TikToker The Therapist is the first Sierra Leone song to get over 40 million views on a TikTok app and over 8,000 streams on all social media platforms in the first 20 days of the release of the song. Let's now take a look at some of the videos with the song Knack.
One girl do the waka waka, left and right with the biggie baka. Instagram don't finish data, big nash me I must do naka. One girl do the waka waka, left and right with the biggie baka. Instagram don't finish data, big nash me I must do naka. My head, my neck, my waist, but I still want that. One girl do the waka waka, left and right with the biggie baka. Instagram don't finish data, big nash me I must do naka. My head, my neck, my waist, but I still want that. Fine girl do the waka waka, left and right with the biggie baka. Instagram don't finish data, big nash me I must do naka. My head, my neck, my waist, but I still want that. I want that. Fine girl do the waka waka, left and right with the biggie baka. Instagram don't finish data, big nash me I must do naka. My head, my neck, my waist, but I still want that.
Well, this is bringing Sierra Leone music to international social media platforms. Well, that's all in this edition of the EMT News. My name is Daphne.
Entertainment, we now go for the very latest in the world of sport.
It's a warm welcome to this edition of Sports Updates, and in this edition of the Sport News, Martin Bangura has been elected president of the Sierra Leone Athletics Association. He defeated incumbent Alhaji Abdulkarim Sise in their elective congress held on Saturday, 9th April 2022 at the Afrique Olympic Hall, Cardiff in Freetown. Here is the report. The internal wrangling in the Athletics Association led to the delay in electing a new executive charged with the responsibility of championing the growth of the sport, inclusive of its athletes and officials. A 7-man committee was formed and given the mandate to conduct the elective congress, which has ushered in Martin Bangura and team as the newly elected executive that will be in charge for a period of 4 years. He defeated incumbent Alhaji Karim Sise overwhelmingly, polling a total of 44 votes as against Sise's 27 votes. The former president, who has been in athletics since the 80s and served as president of the association for a decade, said he was pleased with the conduct of the elections and has pledged his unflinching support to the new executive. The infighting in the association affected the growth of the sport and brought about huge division in the association, but Martin has assured all of embracing unity for the development of athletics in the country.
It's come a long way, but today is Liberation Day. Now let me go now to the delegates. You surprised me. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to do this together. My mission this time around is we leave no man behind. This is a family, and we are going to continue as a family. And by the grace of God, we want to make sure that each and every one of you be a party to what we are going to do. Work starts now, and my first mission is unity. This is a family, and we should work as a family.
Their constitution has been amended and adopted during the Congress. And now in football, the Sierra Leone Premier League Board has awarded 3 points and 3 goals to Bo Rangers Football Club. This decision from the board follows a riot that broke out during their crunch tie in Bo, and the match was eventually abandoned. The game was violently interrupted by fans following their award of penalty to Bo Rangers FC in the mid-second half of play, and therefore the board has penalized FC Cologne after their investigation. Details of that story will be seen in subsequent news. Well, that's all we have time for in this edition of Sports Update on the News. I have been your presenter, Esther Marisa Marcin. Goodbye. Keep watching the SLBC.
Well, with sports, we'll bring the cutting down for news hour. But before we go, our main stories. The Ministry of Health and Sanitation has presented awards to hospitals for the Best District Health Medical Team and Best Tertiary Hospital, and also award Excellent Health Media Coverage to the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation. The Minister of Health and Sanitation, Dr. Austin Demby, said the awards night was quite necessary as medical practitioners do not often get the recognition they deserve. National COVID-19 Emergency Response Center, NACOVAC, has issued a press release on the revised travel and mask guidelines, which will come into effect on Wednesday, 13th April 2022. The center has been giving revising guidelines since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic in the country. And emotional reactions from the media circles have continued to pour in following the death of Jonathan Lee, who was proprietor and managing editor of the Independent Observer, one of the biggest newspapers in Sierra Leone. Mr. Lee died on Saturday, 9th April at the Connaught Hospital after a short illness. His career in journalism spanned for decades, before he took up a role as Sierra Leone's deputy ambassador to Germany under President Bio's administration. Well, that's all we have time for in this edition of the news broadcast live on TV. Many thanks to the production team. I have been your host, Frances Bernard. Keep watching the SLBC. Good afternoon.